All my life, I've been the second best daughter. My sister Beatrice got everything: love, attention, the golden child treatment. I got the leftovers and constant reminders that I wasn't good enough, until I discovered that Niall, the gorgeous alpha from the neighboring pack, was my destined mate. Finally, it was my turn to be chosen. God, I was naive. 4 years of engagement hell, bleaching my hair to suit his tastes, squeezing into tight dresses, playing his personal maid, only to hear I'd make a better servant than mate. All because his heart belonged to my sister. That night, I accidentally knocked over their picture frame. He slapped me hard, said I'd never measure up to her. So I slapped him back, tore up their photo, and accepted rejection. I thought it was over until I caught them at the club, laughing about how pathetic my 4 years of trying had been. The whole engagement was their sick game. Drunk and furious, I did something reckless with my mysterious neighbor, Alpha Hudson, a face carved by God's danger in every perfectly tailored line. This time, I won't be anyone's second choice. Christina's point of view. Slap. My head snapped to the side, my vision blurring, my skin burning as if someone had branded me. My fated mate just hit me. 3 minutes ago, I was daydreaming about redecorating this ridiculously expensive pack house. 2 minutes ago, I accidentally knocked over a framed photo in his bedroom. A picture of my sister. Now blood rushed in my ears, sharp, humiliating. Akira roared inside me, a storm of betrayal that stole my breath. You broke it, Niall spat. This is the only picture I had with Beatrice. Your jealousy makes me sick. The hatred in his eyes cut deeper than any slap. She was your sister, and now you covet what was hers. You won't stop until every trace of hers erased, will you? He said angrily as he shoved me backward into the coffee table. I landed on the shattered glass. Pain lanced through my palm, and my blood smeared across Beatrice's perfect smile. How bitterly fitting. My cheek throbbed, my hand was bleeding, but nothing hurt more than the realization that my so-called mate had never loved me. It wasn't me, I said, one final attempt at reason. I never forced this mate bond on you. I never asked her to leave. Logically speaking, I understood why someone might blame me. On my 18th birthday, I shifted and realized Niall was my fated mate. Stupidly, I wrote it all down in my diary. I planned to tell him when he returned from his business trip. If he couldn't accept me, I was prepared for rejection. But Beatrice found my diary and made it public. Privacy meant nothing to her. She broadcast my diary to everyone in the Crescent Pack. I was publicly shamed as the pathetic spare who dared to reach above her station for her perfect sister's alpha. Then Beatrice graciously left for abroad, leaving behind a letter saying she discovered my secret and decided to let go and let him be mine. Her generosity was as real as someone being generous with a credit card that wasn't hers. And I was the villain who drove away the Crescent Pack's perfect princess. To my family, I was a long-neglected player suddenly promoted to the first string. A strategic shift I was now bound to appreciate. My parents didn't truly care which daughter married Niall, only that the Pack alliance was sealed. Even if Niall had literally ripped my heart out, my parents would have handed him napkins to clean up. It was as if my parents had always hated me. No matter how much I outperformed Beatrice in training, they always made excuses for her and found fault with me. I was bitter, ungrateful, someone who couldn't appreciate her dear sister. My fingers clenched around the engagement ring, this pathetic symbol of our joke of a relationship. Hot tears blurred my vision. I blinked them back quickly. I bolted for the door and got out before the tears came. Niall grabbed my wrist to stop me. Clean it up. What? I stared at him in disbelief, needing to confirm I'd heard him right. You broke the photo frame. Clean up the pieces. An ice-cold command. Too bad I was never good at taking orders. Number. I lifted my chin. 0 compromise. His jaw clenched. Are you sure you want to do this, Christina? Yes. I said no. I stared him down without flinching. If love meant grinding my self-respect into dust, then fuck love. The air between us snapped, tension rising like a storm. He leaned in, fury blazing. Last chance, disobey me, and I'll end this bond right here. We're over, I cut in. Shock froze his face. For a moment, the air went still. He hadn't expected me to actually say it. I yanked my arm free, my breath catching, as hope for escape flared, only for him to seize me again, his grip bruising, his eyes burning with something close to hatred. "This is on you, Christina," Niall snarled, his tone that of a sworn enemy rather than the mate fate had chained me to. "I, Niall Granger, alpha of the Frostbelt Pack, reject." "Shut the hell up," I snapped. If anyone was ending this bond, it would be me. My gaze locked onto his, unflinching. "You don't get to reject me. I reject you, Niall. Now accept it." The world seemed to crack in half. Akira howled inside me, a keening wail of loss, while searing agony tore through my chest as the bond unraveled thread by thread. His jaw tightened, but he forced the words past clenched teeth. "I accept your rejection now. Clean up your mess and fix the damn photo." My hands shook as I picked up the shattered frame, shards biting into my skin, my blood smearing across the glass. I tore the picture down the middle, ripping his face away from my sister's, as if severing every last tie. Without hesitation, I swung my hand and slapped him hard across that infuriatingly handsome, arrogant face. The crack echoed between us. I leaned in, letting him see the fire in my eyes. "Now," I hissed, "we're done." The silence was absolute. My palms stung, but oh, the satisfaction almost dulled the pain in my chest. Niall staggered back, shock flashing in his eyes. It wasn't from pain, but from realizing the docile girl he despised no longer existed. I smiled coldly. "Goodbye, Niall. Go worship your shrine to Beatrice." And I walked out of that suffocating hell, head held high. I would rather drown in my own tears than let him see one more drop. When I reached the parking lot, the cold night air hit my face, but overwhelming pain crashed over me like a tidal wave. Fuck, no one ever told me that breaking the mate bond would be this excruciating. It felt like having my heart sliced up and served to Hannibal Lecter. He'd probably enjoy it with a nice chanty and some fava beans. I curled up in the driver's seat, cold sweat streaming down my face. Akira lay weakly inside me, whimpering. It's so fucking strange, like someone reached into my gut and tore something out with their fist. I couldn't agree more. I wanted to find my mother. She would definitely know how to ease this kind of pain. Or maybe any creature in pain instinctively thinks of their mother. As I hesitated between sending a mind link or making a call, my phone vibrated. My vision was so blurry that I fumbled to swipe and answer. "Chrissy, you must be insane," my mother screamed. "How dare you humiliate Niall like this? The Pack Alliance is ruined." "Mom, he rejected me," I said weakly, as in, formally. Also, he hit me, so there's that fun detail. "He, what?" For once, she sounded stunned. My dad's voice cut in. "Don't be dramatic after everything Beatrice sacrificed for you. You will apologize to Niall immediately and beg him to marry you, or you're no longer welcome in our territory." He hung up before I could respond. I stared at my phone in bewilderment, my father's words echoing in my head. Not "are you okay?" Not "we're coming to get you." Just threats about banishing me from the pack. Why was it that no matter how hard I tried, I still couldn't earn even a sliver of their approval? When I was rejected by my mate and dying from the pain, all my parents could think about was the Pack Alliance and my fucking sister, who had disappeared God knows where. Beatrice never had to do anything, yet she was their precious jewel. So, is this it? On the day I severed the mate bond with my fated mate, I finally realized that my parents had never loved me. It shattered my last remaining, pathetic, and pitiful longing for my parents' love. Enough. I was done trying to earn love that would never be given. I was done being the convenient backup daughter. I was taking back the self-respect I'd lost long ago, and I was breaking free of this engagement, no matter the consequences. Christina's point of view. The drive to my rarely used apartment was a blur. The one I hadn't set foot in for months, ever since Niall's mom invited me to live at their pack house and plan the wedding. What a joke that turned out to be. As I reached my door, I fumbled with the security pad. Pain traveled through every inch of my body, and I gritted my teeth, refusing to faint pathetically on my doorstep. Wrong code. Again and again. Frustration boiled over. I kicked the door with my heel, a pitiful gesture that accomplished nothing except sending pain shooting up my leg. Of course, the universe had decided today was the day for my starring role in a cosmic joke. I slumped against the wall and slid to the floor as sobs tore from my throat. Why did everyone always favor Beatrice? Hadn't I suffered enough? Second place in my family, just a replacement in my own mate's heart. Just as I was nearly choking on my own cries, a deep voice came from behind me. That is my door. You are assaulting. Great. Another fucking problem. What? I snapped, turning to glare. The man standing there was devastating. Not pretty boy handsome like Niall, but ruggedly masculine. Tall and powerfully built, with sharp cheekbones and a strong jaw. His dark hair was slightly tousled, and those piercing blue-gray eyes that seemed to see right through me. He looked like the kind of alpha who didn't just win battles, but erased his enemies from history entirely. If you are planning to kick it in, I'll need your insurance information first, he said flatly. My throat went dry. I am so sorry. I thought this was my apartment. He tilted his head, gaze unreadable. Rough day. My face burned with awkwardness. Great. Rejected, injured, and now looking like a complete idiot in front of the most gorgeous man I'd ever seen. You could say that, I muttered, hauling myself up and attempting dignity while looking like a raccoon caught in a dumpster fire. Easy there, Hurricane. He raised an eyebrow, gesturing to the door across the hall. That would be yours, I believe. Hurricane. I should have been annoyed, but the way he said it made my stomach flutter strangely. I know where I live. Could have fooled me. Fine, I mumbled, attempting to smooth down my wreck of a dress. Thanks for the geography lesson. Need help with your door code? What I need is for this day to reboot, like a malfunctioning iPhone. But thanks for the offer. I walked toward my door, feigning composure and grace, as if the crazy woman who just had a breakdown wasn't me at all. While I punched in my door code, I could feel those intense eyes watching my every move. Come on, fingers, work faster. Beep, finally. I glanced back. He was still watching, arms crossed. Sorry about your door, I muttered. I'll survive. I closed my door and pressed my back against it. Well, that was humiliating. My devastatingly handsome neighbor probably thought I was a lunatic. And honestly, he wasn't wrong. Wait, devastatingly handsome. Fuck, I really was losing it. I dropped onto my bed, exhausted. Akira was barely alive inside me, hurt by rejection. Her once sharp senses now dulled. We'll heal, I whispered to her. No response. Great. Even my own wolf was giving me the silent treatment. I don't know when I started losing myself for him. Maybe it was the first time he looked at me like I wasn't enough. I bleached my hair until my scalp burned raw because he called me boring with mousy brown hair. I shoved my feet into heels that carved blisters into my skin, only for him to sneer, "Why are you walking like a newborn giraffe?" Beatrice could run in heels. I dragged myself into the kitchen before dawn, cooking meals I never ate, ironing shirts that weren't mine. When the pack humiliated me, he didn't protect me. He only reminded me I should be grateful to make do. I realize now, he never truly saw me as his mate, his one and only. I was his project, his servant, a placeholder until he found what he truly wanted. For 4 long years, I stayed. The weight of that truth crushed me. My chest ached with every breath. How pathetic that I poured everything into a man who never even tried to know me. My exhausted heart needed rest. I curled into the wet pillow and let the darkness take me. 2 days slipped away before I woke again. I called gently to Akira. Are you okay? Akira, can you hear me? Akira stirred weakly in my mind. Chrissy, I feel off. I can't smell anything anymore. I froze, trying to catch any scent. Nothing. Maybe it is just temporary from all the pain, I said to Akira, not knowing if I was comforting her or myself. It might come back later. Her tail drooped listlessly in my mind. Not being able to smell meant she couldn't identify potential mates, a devastating loss for any wolf, but there was nothing we could do about it right now. I let her rest and checked my messages. Oddly, my parents hadn't bombarded me with mind links or calls since their initial outburst. This engagement had been their golden ticket to an alliance with the Frostbelt Pack. A marriage alliance with one of the North's top 3 packs wasn't something they'd abandon easily. Neither of us daughters could inherit leadership of the Crescent Pack, but marrying a powerful alpha that ensured our pack's future prosperity. Suspicious. Part of me wondered if Niall had said something to keep them at bay, maybe even felt guilty. Unlikely. More probably planning his next move. The doorbell shattered my pity party, and it didn't stop ringing. For 5 minutes, I groaned. Horrible social interaction. Dragging my carcass to the door, I pulled it open. Waisolda Carlyle, who was my best friend, and the only person with legal rights to yell at me, stood there with narrowed eyes and 2 bags of takeout. Then her gaze landed on my face. What the hell happened to you, for real? I am giving my face a remodel. Symmetry was getting stale, I said with a lazy shrug. Even though every muscle in my face ached, she wasn't buying that crap for a second. She reached out, tilting my chin gently to inspect the split skin on my cheek. Who laid hands on you? Come on inside, I muttered, hurrying her along. Didn't need the whole block gossiping about my beat-up face. The door slammed shut, and I collapsed into her arms, all the fight draining out of me. Eventually, one word fell out, quiet and broken. Niall. Waisolda froze, solid. No fucking way, she hissed. Niall. Your mate Niall, the poster child for diplomatic perfect behavior. I nodded, my eyes burning. Tell me everything, not a single detail left out. So I did Beatrice's photo, the slap, the formal rejection. By the time I finished, Waisolda looked ready to commit murder. That bastard, she hissed. And over what? Your psycho sister who isn't even here. I swear to Goddess Chrissy, Beatrice could be on another continent, and she'd still find a way to ruin your life. Maybe it is for the best. At least I found out what kind of mate he really is before we got married. My stomach growled loudly. Waisolda raised an eyebrow and lifted the takeout bags. Good thing I came prepared. Between bites, I frowned. Don't you think it is weird my parents haven't called? They wanted this wedding so badly, but now, nothing. Waisolda shrugged. Maybe they're plotting. Your father isn't the type to give up his plan easily. After dinner, Waisolda pushed me into the bathroom to shower while she cleaned up. I stood under the hot water, trying to wash away 4 years of delusion. Through the bathroom door, I heard her on the phone. I caught bits and pieces. Complete asshole. What a dick. You won't believe what he did to her. She was probably talking to Zane Carlisle, her brother. Unlike Niall, Zane treated women with respect. The way Waisolda so instantly, so fiercely chose my side made my throat tight. She believed me without hesitation. When everyone else would side with Niall, she declared war on my behalf. This wasn't something small. Going against Niall's pack could create serious problems for her family's small pack. I wrapped myself in a towel and sighed. Why couldn't my parents love me like that? Suddenly, I was hit by waves of excruciating pain, each one stabbing through my abdomen. Each surge burned through my neck where Niall's marks still lingered. I collapsed on the bathroom floor with a scream. Waisolda burst through the door. Chrissy, what happened? I could barely form words. Pain. Killer, please. Waisolda helped me up and rushed out to get medication. I clutched my stomach, biting my lip to keep from screaming again. This was different from rejection pain. Akira howled in anguish inside me. It is mate betrayal, she whispered weakly. What? But I already rejected him. The mark on your neck hasn't fully faded, Akira explained through our pain. Seriously, he rejected me and immediately ran off to fuck someone else. Couldn't even wait for our bond to completely break before shoving his dick into another woman. Waisolda returned with painkillers and water. After I swallowed them and the worst wave subsided, she sat beside me, fury blazing in her eyes. That bastard, she snarled. I nodded weakly. You know what? Waisolda stood up. Fuck him. You shouldn't have to suffer alone through this pain. He needs to get a taste of his own medicine. I stared at her in confusion. Get dressed, she commanded. Niall's dick isn't the diamond, and it sure as hell isn't worth mourning. We're going out to find you someone who doesn't need his ex's photo to get it up. I blinked. I've been rejected and your solution is clubbing. She threw clothes at my face. My solution is reminding you that you are Christina fucking Vance, and one alpha's rejection doesn't break you. I stared at her. Every part of me wanted to crawl back into bed and disappear, but lying here wallowing while Niall was probably celebrating with someone else. Fuck that. Fine, I said, dragging myself up. But if I collapse on the dance floor, you are carrying me home. Waisolda grinned wickedly. Trust me, you won't need rescuing tonight. Christina's point of view. Don't you think I look like a hooker? Do I really have to wear this? I said, tugging at my extremely short skirt that would show my panties if I so much as sneezed. Sweetheart, it is not vulgar, it is daring sexy, Waisolda said, dressed like a mafia queen and standing tall against the icy wind in her 5-inch heels. Plus, don't cheapen yourself like that. But isn't this a little too? I didn't even finish before a brutal gust of wind slapped me across the face. I immediately wrapped my sinful fur coat tighter around myself and curled up like a frozen prawn. Waisolda let out a groan. Chrissy, come on. We're going to high-rise city's most exclusive pack club, not an Arctic expedition. I am just glad I won't be hospitalized for hypothermia tonight. Thanks, I snapped back. She rolled her eyes. Don't you already have a fur coat? You know, the one that comes naturally, she said, clearly questioning why a werewolf was complaining about the cold. I bit back, because I am in human form right now. I thought we'd have to wait in line like everyone else. That was the whole reason I wore this fur coat. But clearly, I had underestimated Waisolda. She had no intention of following the rules. With the ease of someone who'd done this 1,000 times, she slipped a rolled-up bill into the bouncer's hand, her palm casually grazing his rock-hard chest, like a Bond girl who'd forgotten her martini. 10 seconds. That was all it took. We were in. Waisolda was the kind of beautiful that made men forget their names and girlfriends in 2 seconds. We sailed into Luna's Eclipse. It was the most exclusive club in high-rise city, where rich werewolves played politics over overpriced drinks. The place was thick with heat, perfume, and the effervescent scent of champagne. I ripped off my coat the second we stepped inside, only to be met with a glare from Waisolda that said it all. Are you trying to humiliate me? She handed her coat off to a passing server with a flick of her fingers, like she'd personally hired the man. I tried to copy her moves, failed miserably, nearly dropped my purse. Moon goddess, I gasped, eyes glued to the menu like it was robbing my credit card. Waisolda gave me a sideways glance and scoffed. Wait, Niall never spent money on you. What a cheapskate. Relax, tonight's on me. I breathed a sigh of relief, considering I'd been rejected by my mate, had my wedding canceled, and my parents were planning to banish me from the territory to become a rogue. I needed a fortune to buy scent, masking spray to prevent Niall from hiring someone to kill me. Price tags aside, the view was elite, rising young gammas, handsome future alphas, and a swarm of finance bros who looked like they gave TED Talks on dominating Wall Street in custom suits. Honestly, it was a room full of show-offs and wannabe flirts, all hiding under the dim lighting. We found a table near the bar, and a bartender locked eyes on us. Well, he was hard to miss, tall, sculpted features, sleeves rolled to the elbows just enough to show off well-trained forearms. He shouldn't be mixing drinks. He should be shooting Dior fragrance ads or modeling sexy men's underwear, or at the very least starring on the Shifter romance novel cover. Maybe that is why this club was so expensive. Even the staff had to be perfect. 275's whiskey, Weiss ordered before I could even find the cheapest drink on the menu. Make it strong. And of course, she didn't forget to show her perfect smile, chin tilted just enough to say, "Oops, didn't mean to flirt." The bartender reached effortlessly for the gin. Rough night. More like a rejection. Level disaster, she said, casually pointing her thumb at me. And it is wrapping up real soon. I glanced at her, thrilled that my personal life is now public broadcast. She patted my hand. "Sweetie, this place runs on romantic catastrophes. Without bad decisions, no one would be buying drinks." Then she turned away and melted into the crowd, flipping into social queen mode, like someone had hit a switch. In under 10 seconds, she completed a visual sweep before spinning back around and pointing toward the edge of the dance floor. "Okay, listen, you need a rebound. Target A, 6'2" Manhattan finance, bro. Suit worth more than your monthly rent. Haircut that speaks my therapist costs more than your car. He'll wine and dine you, then ghost you for his stock portfolio." I shook my head. Nope. Her eyes flicked to a new direction. Target B, tortured Parisian artist type. Looks like he subsists entirely on cigarettes and existential dread. He'll write poetry about your eyes, then ask to borrow money for art supplies that somehow always end up being weed and takeout. Pass. She sighed, then pointed again. Fine, target C, sensitive musician with a promising EP dropping next month. Translation, you'll be supporting him financially while he finds himself through his craft for the next decade. I groaned into my hands. "You sold, please." She didn't back down. "Chrissy, you cannot sit here like a decorative wall gecko. Tonight is about rebooting your life, not stitching up emotional wounds." Just as she geared up for a fourth round of rebound recommendations, she suddenly froze. It was like someone had hit mute on her entire system. Then, far too casually, she said, "Hey, want to hit the bathroom?" I narrowed my eyes. "No. Or maybe, let's move tables. The vibe here is weird." Her smile was tight. Weird vibe. We'd only been sitting for 10 minutes, and we just ordered drinks. By Waisolda's standards, we were barely warming up. Then, I followed her gaze. A half-private booth. Niall. He had his arm draped around a woman, Her head rested on his shoulder, makeup flawless, smile polished and effortless. But that wasn't the worst part. They were kissing, deep, hungry kisses. The woman was perched on his lap, her dress riding up, their hands roaming each other's bodies, as if they were seconds away from tearing each other's clothes off right there in the club. My stomach lurched. The sight was revolting, obscene. I didn't need more details about who she was. That face, I would never forget it. 4 years ago, the woman generously gifted me her boyfriend as my fated mate, left a heartfelt letter, and disappeared overseas. Now here she was, brazenly draped across my mate's lap, turning the whole club into their personal cheating stage. I had told myself I was over it. We'd broken up. It was done. Time to move on. Until I heard what came next. Honestly, I didn't think she'd completely break down over a picture frame. Beatrice's voice dripped false pity as she pulled away from their kiss. I put that photo where she'd see it. She still doesn't know about your business trips to Europe for me. Time she got a hint, don't you think? She looked up at Niall adoringly. Darling, your performance was perfect. Even I almost believed you cared about the photo instead of covering our affair. Niall chuckled. I had to act upset. She spends every day trying to be perfect for me. If she knew all her efforts still couldn't compete with you, she'd completely lose it. Beatrice laughed softly, patting his chest. Don't worry. Knowing Chrissy, she is probably still trying to fix things. She always believes if she just tries hard enough, people will see her worth. The harder she tries, the more pathetic she looks. Beatrice smiled. And I just happened to return home. My parents don't know anything. She ended things herself, so you are blameless. Niall nodded. I talked to your parents. The wedding's still on, just a change of bride. Beatrice smiled triumphantly. Perfect ending, right? I never gave up on you, just waited for her to step aside. She leaned closer. You know how she tried copying everything about me. The bleached hair, the style changes, even how she talks. God, it was hilarious watching her pathetic attempts. Niall snorted, like a discount knockoff. Though I thought fated mates were supposed to be deeply in love, Beatrice's voice turned curious. Aren't you two supposed to be? Niall's face darkened. My hands shook so badly, I could barely hold my drink. The pieces were falling into place, and Akira whimpered inside me. He has been cheating long before the rejection, she whispered weakly. That is why we're in such agony. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. When there is infidelity after being marked, intimacy with another outside the mateship causes extreme pain to the partner. But distance can mask immediate betrayal pain. It festers in the bond instead. All those business trips abroad, all those times he visited Beatrice, the mate bond had been slowly deteriorating, accumulating damage we couldn't feel because of the distance. When Niall rejected me, that rejection pain combined with months of accumulated betrayal trauma, it was destroying us both. No wonder I felt like I was dying. I wasn't just dealing with rejection. I was dealing with months of hidden betrayal, finally surfacing all at once. Beatrice noticed Niall's dark expression and quickly backpedaled. I am just teasing, silly. I know I am the only one in your heart. The words stung like humiliation, dressed up as banter. It was the kind of punchline you'd expect at a comedy club, not from your sister and your mate. Funny, isn't it? How the people who know you best are the ones who can cut the deepest. Akira stirred inside me, her growl low and hungry for payback. Isolde was pleading with me to stay calm, to not do anything stupid. But her voice was nothing but background noise. I wasn't the same Christina who swallowed her pride for praise anymore. I slipped free from Isolde's grip and turned to the bartender. Your best champagne. Put it on Niall Granger's tab. The bartender handed me the bottle. With the bottle in hand, I strode straight toward Niall and Beatrix, their embrace so tangled, so theatrical, it looked like a scene from a midday drama. I raised the bottle and smashed it with all my strength. The glass shattered with a sharp crack. Niall's forehead split instantly, a thin line of blood tracing down between his brows. Christina's point of view. Beatrice screamed and leapt off his lap. Christina, are you insane? What are you doing here? She scrambled to find a lie. You are misunderstanding. It is not what you think. Niall cut her off, his hand gripping her arm. Don't bother explaining, Beatrice. It doesn't matter. Your parents will take our side. We're just correcting an old mistake. Beatrice's panic instantly turned into smugness. She curled into his side and cooed, Oh, honey, your head's bleeding. We have to get to the hospital. Niall calmly took a tissue from one of his guards, dabbing at the blood on his forehead. So now you know everything. Before I could respond, Isolde rushed forward, her hand raised to slap Beatrice. You filthy bitch. Niall's hand shot out, gripping Isolde's wrist brutally. His voice was ice cold. My woman isn't for some nobody from a backwater pack to insult. Playing the hero, know your place. My heart sank, right? He was a powerful alpha. I couldn't fight him head on. But I still had the glass shard in my hand. I moved quickly, yanking Beatrice in front of me and pressing the jagged edge to her cheek. Let go of my friend, or I'll make sure your woman's face matches her personality. After all, even with werewolf healing, scars still show, don't they? Niall's eyes flashed dangerously. You wouldn't dare. You've been having an affair with my sister for 4 years behind my back, I said calmly. How do you think it'll look when that story gets out? Not great for your reputation, I'd imagine. Niall hesitated, then slowly released Isolde's wrist. The moment he let go, I sliced the glass across Beatrice's cheek. She screamed, Now, get your woman, and get out. Then, as soon as they were gone, Isolde dragged me out of the club. Chrissy, I am so sorry. I had no idea they'd be there tonight. I didn't even know Beatrice was back. Isolde's eyes were full of regret. I gave a bitter laugh and shook my head. Neither did I. But I heard it loud and clear they'd been screwing around for a while. To them, I was just in the way. Those goddamn assholes, Isolde hissed through clenched teeth. You should tell your parents. Let them know Beatrice isn't the perfect angel they think she is. What about Niall's parents? No way they'll tolerate a scandal like this. I was quiet for a moment. Isolde had a point. Niall's mother, Louisa, was the only person who had supported me. But he was her son. She wouldn't choose me over him. Not in the end. And my parents, I let out a breath. You know better than anyone. They only care about Beatrice. No matter what I do, I'll never replace her. Isolde grabbed my shoulders, worry darkening her gaze. So what now? You are just going to let them humiliate you. Maybe. My voice dropped to a whisper, a weariness weighing it down. Maybe if I accept it, it'll finally be over. Suddenly, Isolde's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, her brows knitting in frustration. Chrissy, my agent just called. There is a last-minute ad shoot. I have to go now. Can you get home on your own? I nodded, managing a faint smile. Go. Don't worry about me. I'll call when I get back. After she left, I hailed a cab. Instinctively, I gave the driver my home address. But barely 2 minutes into the ride, a wave of suffocating pressure settled over me. Actually, I said, take me to any bar, preferably one where people go to forget their names, not celebrate them. The driver barely shrugged. In high-rise city, heartbreak was just another traffic pattern. 10 minutes later, I was sitting at the bar working on my third whiskey sour, maybe fourth. I'd lost count. The bartender kept giving me that, you should probably slow down, look, which I was completely ignoring. Another, I demanded, pushing my empty glass forward. Ma'am, maybe, the bartender started. Did I stutter? I cut him off, sliding my credit card across the counter. Like it was a weapon. I am trying to drown my sorrows, not baptize them. The bartender sighed, but obliged. That guy's right, a deep voice came from behind me. Unless you want to wake up in a stranger's bed tonight. I turned, ready to snap at whoever dared interrupt, then froze. It was him, the sexy neighbor, the one who'd helped me after I'd kicked his door by mistake, politely pointing out the right one. Tonight he was dressed in an expensive suit, his hair slicked back, revealing striking features that would make Michelangelo weep with envy and beg to sculpt him. Well, look who it is, I slurred. The moon goddess's envoy. Did she text you my GPS, or do you just have some built-in radar for women making terrible decisions? He chuckled, the sound rich and warm like expensive brandy. Let's just call it a finely tuned savior complex. You should have been Captain Rescue instead of an alpha, I sighed dramatically. Or maybe Don Juan, offering therapy sessions to every heartbroken woman in high-rise city. And here I thought you'd be signing up for the therapy sessions yourself, he said, eyes sparkling with mischief. You offer your services to every neighbor, only to the ones who seem hell bent on self-destruction at any given moment. Well, I am basically a pro at that, I said, lifting my glass. My life's basically glitter in a carpet, messy, impossible to clean up. He didn't laugh, rush to comfort me, or even deny what I just said. He just watched me quietly, like a spectator, observing a disaster movie. You are not wrong, he finally said. Your talent for chaos is impressive. I was right to call you Hurricane. You can barely stand, yet here you are, drinking more wine. I opened my mouth to argue, but he continued. But somehow you always seem to find someone who refuses to walk away, right when you are about to self-destruct completely. Are you flirting with me, Bad Alpha? Or is this some kind of weird rescue mission? I narrowed my eyes. His smile was slow. Would either answer make you drink less? Probably not, I admitted, but one might make the hangover worth it. I really looked at him then. He wasn't just good looking, he was dangerous looking. The kind that meant trouble and temptation, all wrapped in one. Not the pretty boys with trust funds and spray tans who populated most of High-Rise's elite clubs. This was a man who knew exactly what he was and didn't need anyone's permission to be it. Maybe it was the alcohol or his devastatingly handsome face. Either way, the thought that had been haunting me since the moment I first saw him slipped into my head again. Before I could think better of it, my hand was on his arm. "So, Mr. Helpful Neighbor," I said huskily, "since you are so dedicated to intervention, why not intervene all the way?" A flash of surprise, then he got serious, but he didn't pull away, just held my gaze and said, "Only if you'll own this decision when you are sober." "Trust me," I said without hesitation. "This is the first clear thought I've had all night." Christina's point of view. The sweet door had barely shut when he kissed me, hard and needy. I kissed him back just as desperately, like we couldn't get enough of each other. Just from kissing him, I could feel myself getting wet. It wasn't just me. He was obviously hard too, his erection pressing against me through his pants. He pressed against my back, his burning skin scorching mine as he held me close. He got up to clean me gently afterward, then pulled me into his arms, his breathing becoming steady and even. I drifted off to sleep too. The clock read 10:07 a.m., way too bright for my eyes. I groaned as last night came flooding back, the bar, my neighbor, the hotel, the sex. My whole body ached in the best way possible. I sat up and started searching for my clothes, trying not to make my headache worse. I just pulled my skirt out from under the bed when a voice stopped me cold. "Leaving so soon?" I turned around slowly, partly from the hangover, partly from embarrassment, and saw him standing in the bathroom doorway with just a towel around his waist. He was still wet from the shower, water running down his chest. His hair was slicked back and damp. Somehow he looked even better in daylight. Images from last night hit me, his mouth on me, his hands all over me, the things he whispered in my ear. My throat went dry. "We need to talk," he said, and it wasn't really a question. He stood in front of me, his voice disturbingly calm, as if he were announcing the fridge had broken, not that I had thrown him onto a bed the night before. Talk. My brain instantly began sorting through possibilities. Talk about what? A debrief? A review? Was he proposing some kind of long-term sexual partnership? Well, considering how incredible he was in bed last night, being fuck buddies was honestly a tempting option. Oh God, could I please stop making bad decisions for once in my life? But definitely not a proposal. That sort of thing only happens in soap operas, written by people with hopelessly romantic minds. Was he worried I'd cling to him? After all, it was me who started this. I was the one who dragged him out of the bar, opened the suite door and pinned him down without a second thought. "Look," I said, adopting the most mature, responsible tone I could muster. "Last night shouldn't have happened. It was reckless, impulsive." I paused, my gaze slipping despite itself, and undeniably good. I tried not to look at his shoulders, his chest, or the water droplets sliding down his collarbone, tracing over sculpted muscle. Akira stirred inside me, unnervingly interested in this man's scent. "I am not asking for anything from you," I went on, clearer now. "No responsibility, no dramatic phone calls. That is not who I am." He didn't say anything, but his expression looked slightly annoyed. Seeing no reaction, I turned to the door, aiming for a graceful exit complete with a closure monologue. But just as my hand reached the doorknob, a warm, wet palm landed on the back of mine. I froze and turned around slowly. He was looking at me with an expression I couldn't place, somewhere between surprise and seriousness. "You don't remember me?" he asked softly. I blinked, caught off guard. I answered quickly, almost defensively. "Of course I do. You are my new neighbor." Technically true, totally accurate. That face was unforgettable, or more precisely, that face standing in front of me in just a white towel with water dripping down those abs. Yeah, not something easily erased from memory. I swallowed hard. The silence stretched. Then he said, "It is fine. Doesn't matter." I blinked. "What? Can I go now?" I asked dryly. His hand still hadn't moved. He looked at me again, then said, "Will you marry me?" Christina's point of view. What? You are not serious. I finally found my voice. I am completely serious, he replied, as if he were announcing a quarterly financial report. I've just returned from Europe. I've been alpha of my pack for some time now, but I still don't have a Luna. He stepped closer, his wolf's energy radiating power that made Akira whimper inside me. Unmated alphas are considered volatile aggressive, but with a mate and cubs, a cold smile touched his lips. People see us as grounded, cautious. The council prefers their pack leaders domesticated. I fell silent. 2 days ago, I vowed I'd bring home someone better than Niall, someone impressive enough to silence my parents. Now, the universe had sent an answer, just with a thick layer of irony. But I knew marriage shouldn't be like this. I'd already lived through a loveless engagement once. All it left was a house full of silence, hollow intimacy, and a slow, brutal erosion of my self-respect. I opened my mouth to say no, but at that moment, my phone rang. The sharp ringtone cut through the quiet like a knife. I glanced at the screen and felt like a bomb had exploded in my chest. Franklin Vance, my father, the alpha of the Crescent Pack, whose word was absolute in our household. I looked at his face, familiar yet distant, then back down at my phone. And finally, I said the words, "I can't accept." I walked out of the hotel suite, the ringtone still shrieking. I answered, not because I wanted to, but because I needed. "Where the hell are you?" My father's voice was angry. "Your actions reflect on this entire pack. Do you understand the strategic liability you've created?" There it was, not "Are you okay?" but "How have you damaged our investment portfolio?" "I'll be there soon," I said coldly, hanging up before he could start calculating my depreciated daughter value. I gave the driver my parents' address and collapsed into the back seat, like someone bracing for a public execution. "Okay, let's get this over with." My neighbor, aka my one-night stand, was probably insane, but I still had a drop of alcohol-induced courage left in my blood. The old Christina, desperate for pack approval, hadn't crept back in yet. I had to move fast. The pack house sat on the center of the Crescent territory, in the kind of suburban enclave that didn't welcome anyone who couldn't trace their bloodline back 3 generations. No human visitors, no rogues, just an elegantly worded pure blood only policy. At the wrought iron gate, I took a deep breath. I felt like a boxer entering the ring, shoulders squared, chin up, and emotional armor locked in place. The moment I entered the living room, I could sense the ambush. My father, high and mighty Alpha Franklin, sat alone in his leather chair, wearing the same expression he probably used when commanding subordinate wolves. Beside him, my mother, Caroline, with her perfect hair and perfectly aligned pearl necklace. To their left, Niall sat on the sofa, all solemn and brooding, as if waiting for a pack tribunal to direct his next pose. And, on the right, Beatrice, obviously. All we were missing was a silver stake and an executioner. This was a trial. I was the defendant, and the verdict had already been written. Father struck first. "What took you so long? This pack doesn't run on your schedule." His voice was cold. "Traffic," I lied. If I told them I just escaped from a towel-clad alpha proposing marriage, they'd have me locked in silver chains. "So, why am I here?" My tone was iced over. No one answered. Not until Niall stood, a bandage still across his forehead. The sight of him looking vaguely wounded brought me a small, grim satisfaction. "I had your things removed from my pack house," he said slowly, nudging a small suitcase with his foot. "Everything's there." I stared at it. A single carry-on suitcase, 4 years of engagement, and all I had to show for it was luggage small enough for the overhead compartment on budget airlines. Perfect metaphor for my importance in his life. Rage rose in my throat, but I swallowed it. "Thanks," I said flatly. "That is thoughtful." I snatched up the ridiculous little suitcase and turned to leave. Come on, no one calls a full-blown family meeting just to return a suitcase. I knew better. This was about humiliation, about putting me in my place. They were the real family. I was always the outsider, tolerated only when they needed someone to blame. "Wait," my father said. I paused, didn't turn around. He folded his arms and smiled. "Now that Beatrice is back," he said, "and since you and Niall have broken up, we need to address the pack's public position. I gave a short, humorless laugh, turned around slowly, letting the sarcasm drip from my lips. By all means, plan whatever you want. It is not like you've ever asked for my opinion before. We used to ask, he shot back when you were still the sensible daughter, the one with potential. He stepped closer. You are too emotional, Christina. Your insecurity drove you to paranoid, accusing Niall trying to control him. You rejected your fated mate, and that is what destroyed the relationship. His words were blades, light in tone, ruthless in effect. So this is on you, and you will announce it to the other packs. Tell them you fell for someone else. That is why you rejected your mate bond. I froze. Something ripped open inside my chest, like they'd torn it apart with their bare hands. I looked at them, all of them. My parents, Niall, Beatrice, so calm and deliberate, like a script they'd rehearsed for weeks. What had I done to deserve this? Where had I gone so wrong? I glanced at Niall, hoping for something. I didn't know what exactly. A shred of decency, a moment of courage, but there was nothing. Just that entitled look staring back at me, unapologetic and self-satisfied. This was absolutely insane. No, I refused to make that statement, I exploded. Niall and Beatrice's affair caused me unbearable pain, weakened my wolf. Akira and I can barely sense sense anymore. You both know that means I'll have difficulty bonding with any new mate. I was ready to storm out, but that is when my father finally stood, like a judge, preparing to read the sentence. You don't have to worry about finding someone new, he said with absolute finality. We've already made arrangements. As long as you are still part of this pack, you have value, don't you? I stared at Franklin in fury. In his mind, my value was marrying some alpha to bring resources to the pack. Fuck that. I had my own career to prove my worth. You are absolutely right, Alpha Franklin. As long as I am in this pack, I am valuable, as your prize commodity to auction off. My voice was sweet as poison. What a brilliant businessman you are, selling your own daughter. Too bad your best merchandise just quit. And with that, I stormed out. Christina's point of view. I must not be their daughter. How else could my own parents treat me like some expendable omega when I carried the same crescent blood as Beatrice? Akira, my wolf, snarled inside my mind. They don't deserve us, Chrissy. The moment I got back to my apartment, I collapsed into bed. I didn't move until my phone started ringing. It was Waisoda. You ditched family dinner night, she asked before I could even say hello. Your father just called my dad and asked almost every pack member in the entire Carlisle pack, demanding to know if you were hiding out with me. Well, hello to you too, I groaned. And no, I am not hiding. I am staging a tactical retreat after declaring independence. What happened? Wait, don't tell me. Niall did something spectacularly stupid again. I didn't wait for her to speculate further. I just blurted out everything. The final fight with Niall, my parents making me publicly confess to cheating. And, yes, I also told her about the one-night stand. I left out the proposal. Waisoda let out a howl, so loud I had to pull the phone away from my ear. You had a one-night stand with your neighbor, the one who looks like he stepped out of a Calvin Klein billboard, and you didn't send me a single picture. I switched the phone to speaker and tossed it onto the couch. He is not just hot, Waisoda. He is an alpha. An alpha, her voice reached a pitch only dogs or werewolves could hear. From which pack? I don't know. I didn't exactly ask for his pack credentials while he was taking off my. Don't you dare stop there, Christina Vance. Details now. I dragged a pillow over my face. You are the worst best friend in the history of werewolf friendships. And you are dodging, she shot back. Yes, I was. I never hid things from Isolde, not even when Niall started showing his true colors last year. Not even when Beatrice accidentally ruined my portfolio before the design competition. But last night, I slept with a man whose pack I couldn't identify, just to wash Niall's memory off my skin for a minute, an hour, a night, whatever it took to feel free again. At least tell me this, Isolde pressed. Did your wolves recognize each other? Any mating pull? My hand unconsciously went to my neck, where his teeth had grazed my skin. I don't know, I muttered. Akira was unusually quiet. Holy moon goddess, Isolde breathed. You need to find out who he is. What I need is to figure out how to deal with my parents trying to auction me off to the next available alpha, now that Niles rejected me. Waisolde went quiet for a moment, You know you always have a place with our pack if things get ugly. I swallowed hard. Thanks, I managed. I might need it sooner than you think. I glanced at the time and cursed. I've got to go to work. Now that my parents had made it clear I was as useful as a declawed cat in a hunt. My job was the one thing I couldn't afford to screw up. Of course, they believed I worked as a barista at Ground and Pound. In their minds, once mated to Nile, I should be home full-time. A perfect little Luna with no ambitions beyond pack politics and eventual pup-bearing. They had no idea I was actually Nick's Collective's rising star jewelry designer. The coffee shop was just my cover, my way of explaining where I disappeared to every day without revealing I was doing something my controlling parents would consider beneath them. I dragged my exhausted body to Ground and Pound, already planning my escape route to my studio afterward. Chrissy, my boss, Benny, greeted me like I was an IRS agent with a warrant, nervous, sweaty, practically whimpering. You don't need to be here today. I was just about to call you. He stared at the floor as if it might open up and swallow him. You are not on the schedule anymore. My wolf bristled. Excuse me. You've been fired. I am really sorry. I didn't want to, but... He finally looked up, his eyes wide with genuine fear. Your father came by. My stomach dropped faster than a stone in a lake. Said he'd have every werewolf in high-rise boycott us if I kept you on staff. Benny's nose couldn't pick up pack politics, but even he knew Alpha Franklin wasn't someone to cross. I am sorry. I couldn't do anything. He is just Alpha Benny, not the Alpha King of all the packs. Maybe not, but he has got the Crescent Pack wrapped around his finger, and they're half our customer base. I took a deep breath. Yelling at Benny wouldn't do anything. This wasn't his fault. Before Akira could urge me to do something stupid, like shift right there and tear up the espresso machine, I stormed out. I didn't hate that job. Being a barista was just my alibi. What really paid my bills, what no one in my pack knew, except Waisolda, was my jewelry design work. Ever since I was a pup, my father had told me I was average, ordinary, unexceptional. Every time I tried to shine, he dragged me back into Beatrice's shadow. Eventually, I learned to hide. I buried my ambition, wore gray feathers. So no, I didn't care about losing the coffee shop job. What infuriated me was that this was clearly a power move. My father's influence was all over it. It was his punishment, his response to me rejecting Nile, rejecting the arrangement that would have bound our packs. But Beatrice had already taken my place in this ridiculous marriage. Why couldn't he just leave me alone? He was sending me a message. You don't get to walk away from the pack's plans. I can destroy any independence you think you've earned with just one word. If he thought I would come crawling back, belly up like I used to, begging for the pack's approval, he could go howl at the moon. I wasn't his obedient pup anymore. I was done playing the good little daughter. 30 minutes later, I shoved open the front door of the pack house. No knocking, no announcing myself through the pack mind link. I didn't care. I had come ready to start round 2 of our family dispute. What I found, instead, was something far worse. My parents were sitting on the couch, sipping blood-red wine worth more than my rent, laughing, actually laughing, with a man I didn't recognize. The scene was picturesque, like they'd stepped right out of How to Host the Perfect Alpha Wannabe Dinner. He was a sleazy, off-brand version of an old-school pack boss, custom suit, shirt open too far, revealing a pasted-on-looking thicket of chest hair, like holiday decor gone wrong. Everything about him was overdone. The bleach, white teeth, the polished, pointless smile. Darling, my mother cooed. Come meet Mr. Leonard Shaw, Alpha of the Silver Heights Pack. A true self-made wolf. There is so much you could learn from him about turning wolf talent into real pack success. It hit like a silver bullet to the face. Leonard grinned ear to ear. His eyes went straight to my neck, searching for mating marks. Lovely to meet you, Miss Vance, he said. I do hope we get to run together soon. I always enjoy taking young she-wolves under my wing, especially unmated, beautiful ones like yourself. I didn't bother hiding my expression. It wasn't disgust. It was the look a wolf gives right before it tears out a throat. He was practically drooling. I could hear his wolf howling mating calls in his head. Christina, my father warned in that threat tone. Don't be rude. Show Mr. Shaw proper respect as an alpha. I didn't move. I didn't even blink. My mom's laugh rang out, high and brittle, like a fox caught in a trap. Young she-wolves are so temperamental these days, aren't they? She said to Leonard with the practiced tone of a Luna placating an alpha. Leonard just waved it off. I like a female with spirit, makes the chase more interesting. Yeah, and I like hunters who don't use silver bullets. We can't all get what we want. And my father, the same man who had told me we'll handle everything just days ago, was now nodding at Leonard like a hotel concierge hoping for a good tip. That is when I understood. This wasn't an introduction. It was an offering. I was the sacrifice on display tonight. This wasn't about meeting a promising alpha male, but a pack alliance negotiation. I was being marketed like a breeding female with a bonus dowry. When Leonard finally left, I turned to face them. What the hell was that? My mother raised her wine glass, took a triumphant sip. That, she said, was your future mate. Christina's point of view. Interesting, introducing me to a man who is clearly over 60 and has buried several wives, the kind of man who would definitely make headlines in the human world as a textbook example of husband is usually the killer in those spousal murder cases. Wow, it is a miracle. I've survived to 24 without being poisoned by my own parents. I snorted. You've officially lost your mind. You are pimping me off to a man who probably qualifies for a senior discount. Watch your tone, my father snapped, his alpha voice, making the glasses on the table vibrate. Leonard Shaw is a shipping magnate who controls 3 major port terminals in High-Rise City. His pack may be smaller than ours, but his business acumen is unparalleled. I stared at him. So this is it. I dumped Niall, and suddenly you are throwing me at the next alpha with a functioning heart valve. Dad's jaw tightened. The Crescent Pack invested in you for 24 years, Christina. Elite education, social training, that lavish coming of age ceremony. Do you think any of that came for free? Send me an invoice then, I shot back. I'll pay back every penny, but I am not selling myself to the highest bidder just so you can get your money's worth. You misunderstand your position, he said ruthlessly. This isn't a negotiation. The pack needs stability after your little tantrum. With Niall, Leonard provides that opportunity. My mother sat beside him, silent as a museum exhibit, stirring her tea like she was trying to create a whirlpool to escape into supportive, in the way that meant she'd watch him throw me under the bus for his business deals and then hand me a bandage for the damage. That wasn't why I came back, I said, redirecting. Why the hell did you call my boss? You got me fired. That was the price of disobedience, Dad replied coolly. You don't get to disrespect the pack's arrangements and walk away unscathed. Actions have consequences, Christina. I am never marrying Shaw or any other creep you drag out of your alpha contact list. Dad's expression didn't change, but the room temperature seemed to drop. You'll fall in line. You always do. You've already cost me my job. I don't even live at home anymore. There is nothing else you can take from me. His smile was slow and cold, the kind that reminded everyone why he was alpha. Don't be so sure. You like your apartment, don't you? Shame if your landlord suddenly received an offer he couldn't refuse for that building. My stomach dropped faster than an elevator with cut cables. And that best friend of yours, Waisolda. Her parents' little family business still depends on our supplier network and territory protection. The Carlisle pack is what, 1/10 our size. They'd never survive winter without our support. I stared at him, stunned. You wouldn't. Would you be willing to risk it? The way he said, it made me certain that he meant every vile syllable. Franklin Vance didn't just run the Crescent Pack. He was a shrewd businessman with connections throughout High-Rise City's corporate world. The kind of man who turned networking into an art form, building alliances that stretch from pack politics to boardroom deals. If he wanted to destroy someone's livelihood, one phone call was all it took. And my father had never hesitated to weaponize those connections. As his daughter, I was just another commodity in his portfolio, something to be traded, leveraged, or liquidated for the right price. He was basically running a high-end escort service, except instead of a street corner, his office had mahogany furniture and a killer view. So unfortunately, I didn't have a choice. Not really. I couldn't let Waisolda get caught in the crossfire of my family's twisted drama. If someone had to go down, it wasn't going to be her. So I went on the offensive. I can't marry that old creep, I said, with all the conviction of someone who just bet their life savings on a horse named Maybe Tomorrow, because I am already engaged. My father's teacup froze midway to his lips. You what? Found a new mate, I repeated, casually inspecting my nails like I wasn't making this up on the spot. Met someone incredible, very powerful alpha. We've been making it official. Even my mother looked up at that, her eyes wide as dinner plates. Dad set down his cup with a sharp clink. That is not possible. You were engaged to Niall for years. You broke it off last week. Well, it has been a productive week, I said, flashing my most deranged pageant smile. Turns out, I am quite decisive when I finally get a say. Who is he? Mom finally spoke. You'll meet him soon enough, I said, lifting my bag and stepping toward the door. I'll bring him home for dinner sometime. And I promise, he'll make your Leonard Shaw look like a small-time player trying to run with the big dogs. Dad rose from his chair, his alpha presence filling the room. Christina Vance, you are not walking out of this house until... Until what? I turned, summoning every bit of courage I'd never known I had. Until you threaten more of my friends. Go ahead. But then I'll make sure my new mate knows exactly how you treated his chosen female. I wonder how that would play out at the Elder Council. The bluff was so enormous it practically had its own gravitational pull, but the mention of the Elder Council, where alphas settled territory disputes, made my father hesitate just long enough. This discussion isn't over, he growled. It is for today, I replied, and walked out before he could use his alpha command on me. Back at my apartment, I collapsed onto the sofa, like a house of cards in a hurricane. Fuck, I screamed into a pillow. I was seething, not only at my father and his Machiavellian maneuvering, which earned him a top-tier spot on my shit list, but also bitterly at myself. Because after all these years of therapy, self-help books, and telling myself I was immune to his manipulations, he still got under my skin like a splinter you can't quite dig out. And now I'd gone and thrown a bloody mate into the mix like I was auditioning for a supernaturalrom.com, minus the romance, the comedy, or the actual mate. My father would sniff out the lie in 3 business days. Max, probably sooner if he bothered to check with his connections. Akira paced nervously in my mind. We need to find someone fast. I know, I muttered aloud. I needed to make my little lie true, somehow. I needed an alpha who oozed enough power and dominance to make my father think twice about his precious Leonard Shaw alliance. Someone untouchable, impressive, preferably with enough bite to make my father second-guess every threat out of his mouth. Too bad every eligible alpha I knew who fit the bill was either mated, morally bankrupt, or part of Niall's inner circle. Moon goddess help me, I groaned, burying my face in a throw pillow. Then, just as I was ready to spiral into a full-blown panic attack, a face floated into my mind. Blue eyes and sharp jawline. My next-door neighbor who had proposed to me just hours ago. Christina's point of view. I stood outside his door, drawing in a breath that felt more like preparation for a firing squad than a conversation. I knocked. Well, that was it. Point of no return, unless I suddenly faked my own death in the next 5 seconds. The door swung open almost immediately as if he'd been waiting. There he stood in all his commanding presence, wearing what had to be a custom suit. Not the kind you grab off the rack for job interviews, but the kind that announces, I own the building, the block, and possibly your soul. Perfect timing. He looked like he was headed out, probably, to acquire a small country or make another billion before dinner. Well, look who it is. Cinderella coming back for her glass slipper. His voice was teasing. I fought the urge to roll my eyes. It is not like it was my fault. I had to bolt from his hotel suite the moment my dad called. Well, anyway, since when do fairy tales make it into an alpha's reading collection? Next, you'll tell me he curls up with Little Red Riding Hood before bedtime, though I suspect he'd identify more with the wolf than the girl. Can I come in? I asked, trying to sound casual while my nervous system was having a full-blown meltdown. He stepped aside with a fluid grace that reminded me of large cats in wildlife documentaries, deceptively relaxed, but ready to pounce at any moment. His apartment had the same layout as mine, but that is where the similarities ended, where mine was a messy reflection of young professional with IKEA addiction and no eye for design. His was straight out of Architectural Digest. Minimalist furniture that probably had 6-month wait lists, sleek surfaces that had never known the touch of a takeout container, and absolutely zero clutter. It looked expensive but impersonal, like he hadn't bothered to actually move in. No personal photos, no random trinkets, nothing that said, a person with emotions lives here. Just a gorgeous soulless showcase that whispered, I have money and excellent taste, but I am just passing through. Can I get you something to drink? He asked, gesturing toward what I assumed was a kitchen that had never seen actual cooking. Anything that is not alcoholic, I replied quickly. I need a clear head. A smile passed over his face. Water it is. He moved to the kitchen, giving me a moment to collect my thoughts and rehearse my insane proposition one last time. I could do this, just a simple business arrangement between neighbors. Nothing weird about proposing a fake mateship to the walking embodiment of dangerous attraction who happened to live next door. When he returned with 2 glasses of water, I pulled out the check I'd written and held it out like a peace offering. For the shirt, I explained. The one I accidentally ripped during our time together. You mean the shirt you ripped off me like a kid, tearing into Christmas wrapping? His words made me flush, and then he glanced at the check with the interest of someone being offered monopoly money. I don't need it. Maybe not, but I do need to give it. I placed it on his glass coffee table where it looked pathetically out of place. The silence that followed felt heavy enough to sink through the floor. I suddenly felt like every cell in my body had received the memo to panic. At exactly the same time, he moved closer, barely half a step, but enough to make Akira stir restlessly. What is the real reason you are here? My body reacted instinctively to his proximity. Not fear exactly, but that primal awareness you get around someone who clearly runs things. With his well-built body, he was displaying a strong sense of authority. My pulse quickened, my mouth went dry, and every sense heightened. He radiated that unmistakable alpha energy that made me want to lower my head. Finally, I spoke. You mentioned a proposal back at the hotel. I was a bit distracted at the time. He raised his eyebrow. Interesting. But you still haven't answered my question. I want to marry you. The words tumbled out before I could stop them. His expression shifted minutely, the barest flicker of surprise breaking through his composed facade. Not really marry you, I clarified in a rush, words spilling like I'd knocked over a dam. Yes, technically, legally, but not, for real. My father is basically trying to pimp me out to some creep, old alpha named Leonard Shaw, who controls half the shipping terminals in High Rise City and is looking for wife number God knows what. And if I don't show up with someone even more powerful and intimidating, my father will make good on his threats to ruin my best friend's family business and probably kick me out of my apartment. So I need a fake mate who radiates enough "don't fuck with me" energy to make my father back off. And my list of candidates is currently just you. I finally paused to inhale, my chest heaving, like I'd run a marathon. He didn't laugh or call security. He simply studied me with that unnerving intensity, like a chess master considering an unexpected but intriguing move. Then he nodded once. All right. I blinked rapidly. I am sorry, what? I said, all right, I'll do it. He said it so casually, like I'd asked to borrow a cup of sugar instead of asking him to pretend to be my mate. Just like that, my voice had climbed to operatic heights. My family's been pressuring me to find a mate, he explained, taking a casual sip of water. Like I told you yesterday, I need a Luna. Your proposal solves both our problems. I stared at him completely dumbfounded. I need a fake mate at exactly the same time him need one. What are the odds? I narrowed my eyes. Wait, just to be clear, it is a fake mate you are looking for, right? Not a real one. Fake, of course, he replied, but there was something in his eyes that didn't quite match his casual tone. An arranged mateship for mutual benefit happen more often than you think in our world. We're just skipping the courtship and going straight to the contract. I stared at him. You are serious. Deadly. And you just decided this after one night. He smiled meaningfully, then shrugged. You left before I could discuss it properly. I figured you weren't interested. I thought you were joking. I rarely joke, Christina. Wait, I didn't remember telling him, my name, whatever. It didn't matter. What is the catch? I asked. He'd agreed too quickly. I was starting to suspect this was some new type of scam. No catch, just terms. With that, he gestured for me to sit on his couch. I perched on the edge, feeling out of place. He reached into a drawer and pulled out a black notebook. He clicked an expensive-looking pen like someone who regularly drafted contracts before breakfast. If we're doing this, we're doing it properly. You already have terms written down? I asked, incredulously. I like to be prepared. He flipped open the notebook. Shall we? Christina's point of view. I dropped onto his sofa, feeling like I'd stepped into some alternate reality where handsome alphas kept contract templates for fake engagements in their drawers. First, he began, all business now, duration. I suggest 6 months minimum. Less than that looks suspicious. 6 months, I repeated, stunned. I was thinking more like 6 weeks. Your father would never believe you found a mate, fell in love, and broke up that quickly. Not after your 4-year engagement to Niall Granger. He must have investigated me. How else would he know about my relationship history? Did having a one-night stand with an alpha come with a background check now? If anyone should be doing background checks, it should be me demanding his STD results. Beggars can't be choosers. Though I bristled at the mention of Niall, I couldn't argue with his logic. Fine, 6 months. Public appearances. We'll need to be seen together regularly. Pack functions, business events, family gatherings. I assume your calendar is fairly flexible. Sure. I managed, still trying to process that this was actually happening. Physical boundaries. His eyes met mine, intense and calculating. We'll need to establish an acceptable level of intimacy for public settings. I nearly choked on my water. Intimacy quotient. He used the phrase, intimacy quotient, and I had to fight the urge to check if this was all some elaborate prank being live-streamed on TikTok. Hand-holding, casual touching, and kissing in public when necessary to sell the relationship. My cheeks flushed hot, define necessary. When being observed by anyone who matters to our charade, your family, my family, pack members who might report back to either. What about other things? I asked vaguely. Sex, he supplied bluntly, not required by the agreement, but available for negotiation if mutual interest exists. I nearly choked. Let's keep that off the table for now. As you wish. He made a notation in his notebook. No mating bite, obviously. That is permanent. Obviously, I echoed, feeling increasingly surreal about discussing the intimate details. As for living arrangements. Whoa, I held up my hand. Living arrangements, what about them? We'll need to at least appear to be living together, eventually. Mates typically live together. Did he seriously just say live together? Is he actually writing up a contract right now? I hadn't thought that far ahead. We could say we're taking it slow. For a while, perhaps, but engaged couples usually don't keep separate places for long. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it, I said firmly. He suddenly looked up at me and said, I almost forgot, we need to make it legal, a registered mating ceremony with the Elder Council. I was dizzy from all his terms. Excuse me. My pack lawyers scrutinize everything. They'd investigate any claim mate thoroughly. It needs to withstand legal examination. But a mating ceremony is too formal. Wouldn't we be real mates then? I protested. Well, the ceremony wouldn't actually take place. It would just be a registration. We'd include dissolution terms from the beginning, he clarified. After our arrangement ends, we can petition the council for separation. It is uncommon but not unprecedented. My heart ran fast. This was escalating from fake mate to actual marriage at lightning speed. Seeing my hesitation, he added, of course, the registration requires us to go in person. So for now, we'll have to. Considering how desperate my parents had driven me to this point, I reluctantly agreed. All right. He nodded, and I seemed to catch a glimpse of his lips curling upward as he lowered his head, making another note. Exclusivity during the arrangement. What do you mean? I mean, are you planning to date others while supposedly engaged to me? His tone was calm, but something in his eyes flashed possessive. No, that would defeat the whole purpose. Good, neither am I. He closed the notebook with finality. I believe those cover the basics. We can amend as needed. My head was spinning. This was happening too fast, too smoothly. Like I'd wished for rain and gotten a flood. Why would you agree to all this? I demanded. You look wealthy and somewhat charming. You could have any female you wanted. Why tie yourself to me for 6 months? Perhaps I have my reasons, he said, rising to his feet. He moved toward me in a way that made my stomach flip. Perhaps I find the arrangement appealing. We were standing close now, too close. This is insane, I whispered, more to myself than to him. Is it? His voice was low. Or is it the perfect solution to both our problems? I stepped back, needing distance to think clearly. I need to know what I am getting into, full disclosure. His gaze sharpened, and when he stepped closer, the air in the room thickened with his alpha presence. The better question is, he said dominantly, would you rather be here negotiating terms with me? Or would you prefer to become Leonard Shaw's 5th wife? The pressure of his alpha aura rolled over me like a tidal wave, making Akira whimper and press low in my mind. My pulse raced as every instinct screamed submission. I couldn't breathe, couldn't look away from those piercing eyes. He was right. I hated that he was right, but I had no real choice here. Leonard was a disgusting old creep. This man, mysterious as he was, had the kind of power that could actually protect me. At least with him, I could carve out some leverage for myself in this bargain. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. Deal. He extended his hand, and when our palms met, something electric passed between us. But he didn't let go immediately. Instead, he used our joined hands to pull me closer until I was standing directly in front of him, close enough to feel his warmth. "There is a pack gathering this Friday," he murmured, his thumb brushing across my knuckles. Perfect timing to announce our engagement. My heart hammered against my ribs. Friday, that is only 3 days. He leaned in just a fraction, close enough that I could feel his breath against my cheek. The gesture was possessive, intimate in a way that made my brain short-circuit. "Problem?" His free hand came up to cup my chin, tilting my face up to meet his gaze. Heat rushed to my face as my body responded to his nearness. This was supposed to be fake professional, but his touch was making me forget every rational thought. "No," I managed, my voice embarrassingly breathless. "That is, good timing." He raised an eyebrow with that infuriatingly attractive smirk. "Get used to my sudden proximity, Christina. If you can't handle simple contact without looking like a deer in headlights, no one will believe we're actually mated." The warning was clear beneath the velvet tones. "And if you can't sell the role convincingly," he continued, his grip on my chin tightening just slightly, "I won't hesitate to find someone who can." The threat hit like ice water, but before I could react, my phone buzzed loudly in my purse. I fumbled for it with shaking hands, seeing Isolde's name on the screen. My mysterious neighbor, who was now my fake fiancé, finally released me and stepped back. I grabbed my bag and phone. "I have to go." He nodded lazily, watching me leave. I hurried out of his apartment. "Why, Solda?" I answered. "Chrissy," she hissed in my ear. "Where the hell are you? You've got serious trouble brewing. Your father's been making calls." I tried to sound normal, even though my heart was still pounding. I think I already stirred up trouble myself. Christina's point of view. "You did what?" Isolde's shriek caused at least 3 nearby tables to turn their heads in our direction. Her perfectly done nails froze midair, the fork hanging like a forgotten prop. I leaned across our table at La Vache d'Or, the overpriced French restaurant where we'd spent countless evenings, talking about our terrible life choices over ridiculously small portions of food. "Could you possibly announce it any louder? I don't think the wolves in the next territory quite heard you," I hissed, looking around the restaurant nervously. Isolde lowered her voice to a whisper. "Let me get this straight. Your father made you get fired, threatened to destroy my family's business, tried to force you into marrying a geriatric alpha with a string of failed marriages longer than a CVS receipt. And your solution was to propose a fake marriage to your insanely hot alpha neighbor who you had a one-night stand with. When you put it that way, it sounds completely reasonable, right?" I smiled tightly. "Honey, that is not a plan. That is the plot of a romance novel with dodgy consent." I sighed, stabbing my overpriced salad. What was I supposed to do? My father basically gave me an ultimatum: either become Leonard Shaw's fifth conquest or watch him crush your family's business while I live on the street. And your neighbor just agreed just like that. Isolde's eyes widened. "Shockingly, yes." I took a large gulp of water, though to be fair, he said it works for him too. Apparently, his family's been pressuring him to find a Luna. "How convenient." Isolde arched an eyebrow, her face split between suspicion and amusement. "So when do I get to meet this knight in designer armor?" 3 days pack gathering, I grimaced. "Fair warning, it'll be a total shit show." Isolde grinned wickedly, signaling the waiter. "Then we need something stronger than water. 2 glasses of your best red, please." Once the waiter left, she raised her water glass. To finally telling Niall to go fuck himself and giving Franklin Vance a taste of his own medicine. I clinked my glass against hers. To temporary solutions that will probably blow up in my face. The wine arrived, a deep red liquid that promised temporary relief from the craziness of my life. I was about to take my first sip when I felt Akira suddenly tense within me. She sensed something I didn't. "Speaking of things blowing up in your face," Isolde muttered, her eyes fixed over my shoulder. The universe, being the sadistic entity it is, had decided my day wasn't quite catastrophic enough, because there, striding through the entrance, were Niall and Beatrice. "You've got to be kidding me," I groaned, resisting the urge to slide under the table. "Of all the overpriced restaurants in this city." Isolde's face darkened. "Want to leave?" "Number." I straightened my spine. "I am done running." Akira growled in agreement. It took Beatrice about 3 seconds to spot us, probably because she had years of practice tracking me down just to mess with my life. Her eyes went wide in fake surprise before she grabbed Niall's arm and pulled him straight to our table. "Christina," my sister said sweetly, "what a delightful surprise." I smiled back, channeling all the warmth of an Arctic winter. Beatrice, Niall, what an unexpected interruption. Beatrice's smile didn't change as she leaned in for air kisses I didn't return. Daddy mentioned you were seeing someone new, the distinguished Alpha Leonard, was it? I heard he is quite experienced, 4 failed mateships. Imagine that. Her eyes flicked meaningfully toward Niall, who was standing there looking like he'd sucked on a lemon. The subtext was crystal clear. See how quickly she replaced you, with an old man, no less. Actually, I began, but Niall cut me off. Is that why you rejected me? You slept with him, didn't you? His voice was tight, controlled. I felt it 3 nights ago, the pain, the betrayal burning. He is practically old enough to be your father. Oh, this was rich. A laugh bubbled up from my chest before I could stop it. So my night with my mysterious neighbor had caused Niall physical pain through our dying mate bond. Good, let him get a taste of his own medicine after years of cheating with my sister. He thought I'd betrayed him with Leonard when I'd actually had the best sex of my life with someone who wasn't a disgusting old creep. If only he knew the truth. I am so glad you felt the same pain I did, I said with mock sweetness. Too bad our mate bond is completely severed now, or I'd make sure to give you even more to feel. Niall snapped. You cheated on me with some old creep after our 4 years together. Seriously, who is he putting on this act for? Wasn't he the one who cheated with my sister and then rejected me, God? Did he practice my parents' public statement about calling off our engagement so much that he got confused about what actually happened? I could already picture him in front of a pack of reporters, crying dramatically. Christina cheated and rejected our mate bond. Then he'd have every werewolf in high-rise city calling me a slut. My fingers tightened around my wine glass. The urge to throw the wine in his face was nearly irresistible, but the last thing I needed was to go viral on TikTok. Jilted woman douses ex-inexpensive Cabernet. Instead, I took a deliberate sip. Fascinating how you've rewritten history, where I am the one who needed to work things out, not the one who got slapped and verbally abused. That was one time, and one time too many, Waisolda interjected. You don't get to play victim after what you did, Niall. You and Beatrice betrayed the most sacred bond in our world, and you think Chrissy owes you an explanation for moving on. Niall's face flushed dark red. You should watch your mouth, Isolde. Small packs like yours survive on the goodwill of larger ones. Is that a threat? I asked quietly. It is a reality check, Beatrice cut in. Not everyone has daddy's protection forever. Oh wait, you don't anymore, do you, sis? That did it. I placed my glass down with deliberate care and began to rise. Akira was practically clawing to get out, ready to teach my sister exactly how sharp her teeth were. Alpha Niall, Miss Vance. A crisp voice sliced through our tension. The restaurant manager had appeared beside our table, immaculate in a tailored suit. I am afraid I must ask you to leave. Niall blinked, momentarily thrown. Excuse me. You've been added to our establishment's blacklist. Your presence is unwelcome at La Vache d'Or. The manager's tone left no room for argument. Christina's point of view. This is ridiculous, Niall sputtered. Do you have any idea who you are dealing with? Perfectly aware, Alpha Niall, which is why security is already waiting. He gestured toward the entrance, where 2 large men in dark suits stood watching. Beatrice's face had morphed from smug superiority to shocked disbelief. This is absurd. We haven't done anything. Nevertheless, those are my instructions. The manager remained unmoved. Please exit without further disruption. Niall's eyes darted to me, narrowing with suspicion. You did this. I wish I could take credit, I replied honestly. But this is as surprising to me as it is to you. The security guards began moving toward us. Niall's jaw clenched so tight, I could almost hear his teeth cracking, but he knew better than to make a scene. With a final glare that promised future retribution, he took Beatrice's arm and stalked toward the exit. The manager turned to me, his demeanor shifting to apologetic. Miss Vance, please accept our sincere apologies for the disturbance. No apology necessary, that was, I searched for words, impressive. Your dinner this evening is, of course, complimentary. He reached into his jacket and produced a black card with the restaurant's gold logo. The owner has also instructed me to provide you with this. It ensures priority seating and complimentary dining at any time. I stared at the card, then back at him, the owner. Yes, madam. He was quite insistent. As he departed, with a respectful nod, I turned the black VIP card over in my hands, a suspicion forming. Girl, Wisoda reached across the table to grab my hand. Do you know the owner of this place? I stared at the black card. I have absolutely no idea. With Niall and Beatrice gone, the tension finally lifted from our table. Well, that was better than dinner theater, Isolde said, raising her wine glass. To mysterious benefactors and perfect timing. I clinked my glass against hers, savoring the moment. I still can't believe that just happened. Your mysterious neighbor wouldn't happen to own French restaurants, would he? Isolde smirked. Don't be ridiculous, I laughed, though something nagged at me. He is just my neighbor. Right, just a coincidence, Isolde said, clearly not buying it. An hour later, I stood outside my apartment building, fumbling for my keys. The evening had been perfect, too perfect maybe. That is, when I noticed him. Standing outside my apartment door was Mr. Donnelly, my landlord, a 50-something man who perpetually smelled like microwave shepherd's pie and made questionable fashion choices. Like today's socks with sandals combo that screamed, I've given up on impressing anyone. Ah, Miss Vance, he said, shuffling awkwardly. I was hoping to catch you. I forced a smile. Mr. Donnelly, what a surprise. Akira growled inside me. She never liked him, saying he smelled like deceit and processed cheese. Yeah, well, he rubbed his hands together, avoiding my eyes. Look, there's been a problem with the building. A problem, I repeated flatly. Some structural stuff came up, real sudden, safety issues and all that. He still wouldn't look at me directly. I am sure you get it. Structural problems in a building that was just inspected 3 months ago. He tugged at his collar. Yes, well, these things can develop quickly, like a rash after cheap seafood. Mr. Donnelly blinked rapidly. Bottom line is, your apartment needs to be empty for repairs. We need you out by the weekend. And there he was, my father, working his magic like a vindictive warlock. But his blessing was a curse, transforming my life not into a dream, but a dumpster fire. Just my apartment? I asked, already knowing the answer. For now, he mumbled. I could fight it, could threaten legal action, demand proper notice. But what was the point? My father was the Crescent Pax Alpha. One phone call from him was worth more than any tenant protection law in existence. 2 days, I nodded calmly. I'll be out by then. Mr. Donnelly looked so relieved. You'd think I just offered him a kidney. Thank you for understanding, Miss Vance. That is just business, I am afraid. Yes, I smiled tightly. Just business. After he scurried away like a man who'd narrowly escaped a firing squad, I leaned against my door and let out a long breath. Well, Akira, looks like Dad's making good on his threats, I muttered. He is weak, my wolf responded, using others to fight his battles. Finding another apartment wasn't the issue. I had enough saved to afford something decent, maybe even nicer than this place. The problem was what came next. If my father was willing to get me evicted, what else would he do? Get me blacklisted from every property management company in the city, have my car mysteriously towed, arrange for pigeons to specifically target me with their droppings. I was halfway through mentally cataloging my jewelry, making supplies, and wondering if my next landlord would allow me to use a soldering iron in their living room when it struck me. Shit, I whispered, suddenly remembering something critical. I'd agreed to a fake engagement with my insanely hot neighbor, and I didn't even know his full name or pack affiliation. I'd been so desperate to escape my father's matchmaking that I jumped from the frying pan straight into a mystery fire. Absolutely genius. In my defense, I'd been somewhat distracted during our conversation, primarily by how his dress shirt stretched across those broad shoulders. Not to mention the extremely inconvenient and disturbingly clear memories of that evening at the hotel. The one filled with hazy recollections and that completely unwelcome surge of desire. So when he began outlining the specifics of our agreement, I found myself fixated on his lips, wondering if they would still taste the same, rather than absorbing any actual information. Nevertheless, a small oversight. I glanced at his door across the hall. No lights on, probably not home. I hastily wrote a message. Hi, my future mate-to-be. Turns out I am being evicted in 2 days. Long story involving an annoying alpha father. If you are still interested in our arrangement, here is my number. Let me know soon if you want to continue our fake engagement plan. Christina. I folded the note and slid it under his door, hoping I wasn't making another catastrophic life decision. But really, what was one more at this point? Back in my apartment, I opened my laptop and started a search for apartments that won't destroy what is left of my life. The results were less than inspiring. Just as I was buried in a bag of cheese chips, trying to forget about my miserable life by watching a cheerful baking show, my phone rang. Niall's name flashed on the screen. Any other day, I would have let it go to voicemail, but I was still riding the high of watching him get humiliated at Lavash Dar Curiosity won out. What? I answered flatly. Dinner tomorrow night at my pack house. My mother wants to see you. No, hello. No, how are you? Just demands as if nothing had changed between us. Classic Alpha Niall. Wow, your memory is as defective as your moral compass, I replied. We're not engaged anymore. Remember, you slapped me, rejected me, and oh, you've been sleeping with my sister. Ring any bells? Look, my mother misses you. She has been asking about you. Christina's point of view. A pang of guilt hit me. Louisa Granger had been the only person in his family who'd ever shown me genuine kindness. She used to call me baby girl, and she really meant it. She remembered my birthdays. She bought me books that I actually read. She once said I had fire inside me and that it was beautiful. Meanwhile, my mother thought my jewelry design was just a hobby I'd grow out of, and that fire belonged in a fireplace or in hell. Come to dinner, Niall continued, his tone crisp. Just don't tell her about, our rejection. Of course, he wanted me to lie for him again. Just tell her the truth, I said, that her son is sleeping with my sister and decided I wasn't worth keeping around. I can't tell her that. So what exactly are you suggesting? That I pretend we're still together? Play happy couples for your mother's sake? Where's all that masculine bravado you were flaunting with Beatrice? If you are so infatuated with her, why don't you take her to dinner and introduce her to the family? Or you worried Mom won't approve of your shiny new mistress? He didn't answer. I didn't wait for him to. I hung up and threw my phone onto the couch, muttering, what a coward. The clock blinked 10:30 p.m. as I melted into my couch, stabbing at leftover takeout. Tonight's riveting entertainment, watching amateur bakers cry over collapsed sofas, while I pretended my life wasn't collapsing, just as spectacularly. Come on, Jessica. It is just a cake, I muttered at the screen, shoving another forkful into my mouth. At least your fiancé didn't slap you. The apartment plunged into darkness. Perfect. I set my plate down with more force than necessary. The only light came from my tablet, casting an eerie blue glow across my living room, because clearly, the universe felt I hadn't been humiliated enough today. Akira stirred anxiously within me. We should call the building manager. Yes, because Mr. Donnelly is so responsive to my complaints, I grumbled, but reached for my phone anyway. 3 rings, then 4, then straight to voicemail. Mr. Donnelly, it is Christina Vance. The power's out again. Please call me back when you get this. Preferably before I freeze to death or my food spoils. Thanks. I grabbed my phone, turning on the flashlight. $10 bets he is ignoring me to force me out faster, I told Akira as I headed for the door. Nothing says, please vacate the premises. Quite like leaving your tenant in medieval darkness. He wouldn't deliberately cut the power. You clearly haven't met the man who once told me my leaking ceiling was apartment ambiance. The stairwell was eerily silent as I made my way to the electrical panel. The metal box was mounted high on the wall, because apparently this building was designed exclusively for NBA players. Fantastic, I muttered, stretching onto my tiptoes. Even at 5'7", I couldn't properly see the switches. What am I supposed to do? Grow 3 inches on command? I managed to flip a few random switches, but nothing happened. The labels were faded beyond recognition, like ancient hieroglyphics written in disappearing ink. I need a chair, I sighed, turning back toward my apartment. Just as I reached my door, the one across the hall swung open. My sexy neighbor emerged, his phone's flashlight beam slicing through the darkness. Water droplets clung to his disheveled hair, trailing down his neck to a chest barely covered by a loosely wrapped towel. The man looked like a wet Greek statue come to life, all defined muscle and perfect proportions illuminated by phone light. The last time I saw him, he was wearing an exquisite suit. I hadn't expected him to be so striking. It was like discovering your accountant moonlights as a Calvin Klein model. My brain instantly short-circuited. I just stood there, gaping like some weirdo at a singles party, staring at everything. He noticed me staring at him. Of course he did. His eyes, half hidden under wet bangs, narrowed slightly. Then he glanced at my ears, probably noticing they turned the color of a cherry slushie. Enjoying the view, his voice was low, amused. I snapped my eyes up to his face, mortified to be caught staring. I was just the power. His lips curved into that infuriating half smile before he turned and disappeared back into his apartment. Seconds later, He reemerged wearing a white t-shirt that did little to downplay his physique. "Having electrical issues?" he asked. I cleared my throat. "The whole building's out. I was checking the breaker box, but it is mounted in the stratosphere, and Mr. Donnelly isn't answering his phone." "It is fine," he said in that low voice that could probably serve as white noise for insomniacs. He brushed past me and went straight to the fuse box. He didn't even have to stretch. While I nearly dislocated my toes trying to reach the fuse box, he flipped the switch as easily as turning on a refrigerator light. Must be nice to be tall and useful. He squinted at the fuse box for a moment, flipped the switch again, then muttered, "Looks like the main breaker came loose. Probably got knocked around, might be a cheap housing. Let me see if I can tighten it." "Cheap housing," I muttered. Story of my life. "What?" "Nothing," I said, nodding as my brain had checked out of this electrical conversation and was now focused on the gym behind him. The white cotton t-shirt clung to him, or maybe it was just thin enough to reveal everything underneath. Every time he moved, the muscles beneath the fabric rippled, like choreographing a silent dance. It was hypnotic, like watching bread rise or staring at a lava lamp, only hotter. I stared at his back like a creep for a good 2 minutes before it occurred to me that I should help instead of ogling. I cleared my throat. "Don't worry about it if it is a hassle. It is late anyway. I'll just call my landlord tomorrow morning. There is a toolbox in the storage closet. Could you grab me a pair of pliers?" Christina's point of view. Sure. I headed toward the small storage closet next to the stairwell, because clearly I've been promoted from girl who can't reach high things to tool runner. I swept the walls with my phone's flashlight, like something out of a ghost hunting show. The storage closet was a monument to hoarding boxes stacked precariously, tools scattered across shelves. I spotted the pliers on the top shelf, because of course they were. I stretched, rising on my tiptoes and reaching for them, as if auditioning for Swan Lake. Just as I grabbed them, my foot rolled over some suspicious round object. I yelped, lost my balance, and flailed my arms like a human car dealership balloon. In a storm, the floor was covered with nails, sharp and numerous. The kind that would absolutely ruin my chances of ever wearing open-toe heels again. But the pain never came. Instead, a pair of strong arms wrapped around my waist, pulling me upright as if I weighed less than a bag of chips. "Careful," he murmured low. My heart was still trying to beat its way out of my chest. I couldn't see him. He was right behind me. But in the darkness, every one of my senses was turned up to maximum. His breath brushed softly against my neck, warm and gentle. The heat of his palms seeped through my shirt, his fingers gripping my waist as if they were naturally designed for catching wayward women in stairwell accidents. Being in his arms reminded me of how he had kissed me and made love to me that night. The atmosphere was charged, and I was losing my mind a little. I tilted my head up to look at him, rising slightly on my tiptoes, wanting to get closer to his lips. Suddenly, the lights flickered on, illuminating our position. I immediately straightened and pulled away, putting distance between us. I ran my fingers through my hair and said, "You fixed it." "Yes, fixed it," he said, his expression unreadable. "You should check if everything's working in your apartment." "Right, thanks." I brushed past him, careful not to make contact, for catching me and fixing the power. "Anytime, neighbor." "Okay, yeah, fine." I tossed the pliers onto the nearest shelf and bolted. I sprinted back to my apartment like my ass was on fire, and it wasn't until the door clicked shut behind me that I realized I hadn't thanked him, or asked if he'd seen my note. Basic social etiquette, the kind of thing I usually didn't screw up. That wasn't me. I wasn't the type to go weak-kneed and tongue-tied just because a man happened to be attractive. And yet, apparently, being within 5 feet of this man short-circuited my entire personality. One minute I was Christina Vance, a fully functional adult with a normal vocabulary, and the next I was a glitching disaster who overheated at mere eye contact. I mean, seriously, how was I supposed to stay calm? He'd been standing there in nothing but a damp towel and a clingy t-shirt, so thin it deserved a warning label. That man didn't just affect me, he rewired my hormones. Frankly, I deserved a medal for escaping before he noticed his body heat had turned my spine to gel. Oh, or before I nearly collapsed altogether. Collapsed, like some Regency heroine without her smelling salts. I shook my head hard, trying to shake the image from my head. Him in a towel, water running down the line of his throat. "Get a grip, Chrissy." I thunked my head lightly against the door. "You are not some bashful virgin or hormone-crazed teenager you've seen abs before. Hell, you used to have abs." My phone buzzed. I checked it. bracing for the worst. Not Niall. Thank God. Unknown number saw your note. Noticed you are moving. Need help finding a new place. I've got a few ideas if you want, by the way. I am Hudson. Oh, so that is his name. Polite society whispered I should call him. Thank him for the blackout rescue. Or, I didn't know, maybe discuss the upcoming party where we were supposed to debut our fake engagement. Texting meant he was still awake, probably still shirtless. I stared at my phone, wavering. Showing up at his door right now felt like tempting fate. Or, more accurately, tempting myself into doing something wildly inappropriate. Like climbing him like a tree and making all the wrong choices. I did not trust my judgment. Late night was prime time for reckless decisions and inconvenient feelings. Or hormone-driven feelings disguised as something deeper. So I typed out a safe, responsible message, thanks for the offer, but I already have a few places I am looking at. Good night. I tossed my phone onto the couch, like it might bite me. Akira whined again in my mind. We are not going over there, I told her firmly. Not tonight, not tomorrow, not ever. Sleep, when it finally came, was anything but restful. My dreams were filled with Hudson, his hands, his mouth, his body moving against mine. I woke up gasping, tangled in my sheets, my body flushed and aching. This is ridiculous, I groaned, shoving a pillow over my face. I am a grown woman having wet dreams like a teenager. Akira seemed far too pleased with this development. You are no help, I grumbled. To distract myself, I spent the day searching for apartments online and sketching designs for Nick's Collective's next collection. I ordered delivery for both lunch and dinner, determined not to risk running into Hudson in the hallway. Pathetic, I muttered to myself as I demolished a container of pad thai. Hiding in your apartment because your libido has suddenly decided to wake up after years of hibernation. My phone remained suspiciously silent all day. No calls from Niall, no texts, no voicemails demanding I return to my senses. He has either figured out how to handle the packed dinner himself, I said to Akira, or he has taken Beatrice to meet his parents instead. The thought of Beatrice facing Louisa Granger made me snort. Louisa had always seen right through my sister's sweet, innocent act. That girl has her eyes set on nothing but the Luna position. She told me once. She doesn't love my son. She loves what he represents. My phone rang, startling me so badly, I knocked over my water glass. Louisa's name flashed on the screen. Speak of the devil. I hesitated, my finger hovering over the decline button. Christina's point of view. With a sigh, I answered the call. Louisa, my voice was soft, almost apologetic. I could ghost Niall with zero regrets, but Louisa was different. She'd always treated me like family, often better than my own, and I couldn't bear to be cruel to her. She was one of the few who saw the real me instead of just Beatrice's shadow or a convenient replacement. If she was calling now, she probably already knew about the rejection. Either Niall had miraculously grown a spine and told her, or more likely he'd been his usual cowardly self, and she'd sensed something was wrong when I stopped showing up at their pack house. Christina, darling. Her voice was warm but strained. How are you? I've been better, I replied honestly. I heard about what happened. Niall is, well, he is being an idiot. He has always been an idiot where you are concerned. So he had told her. Wonders never cease, or maybe Beatrice had pushed him into it, like she did with everything else in his life. Can't argue with you there. Listen, sweetheart, she continued, her tone softening. I know my son hurt you, but you've been together for 4 years. The mating ceremony is scheduled for next month. The invitations have already been sent to all the northern packs. I didn't want to upset Louisa, I really didn't. But there were some battles a she-wolf had to fight, and this particular one had no to bonding with a man who slapped me in drools over my sister written all over it in blood. Louisa, I think you already know what happened between Niall and me, I said. He and Beatrice are perfect for each other. He has always favored her. It is best to let them be together now. Christina, please don't be like this. I know you love Niall. Her voice was soft, almost pleading. I'll give him a proper talking. To make him end things with your sister. Dear, I know your wolf is hurting. That cracked something inside me. Just a little. I swallowed hard, my eyes stinging as Akira whimpered. I'd been braced for Louisa to tear into me like my parents had, blaming me for damaging the Frostbelt Pack name, for embarrassing Niall in front of High-Rise City's elite wolf community, for not playing my part as the dutiful almost Luna. But instead of unleashing the same harsh criticism my family had thrown at me, she acknowledged my pain. She understood. And somehow, that made everything worse. I let out a long, tired sigh. This wasn't our first breakup. Whenever Niall and I had problems before, Louisa would show up with homemade cookies and that motherly guilt trip, and I'd cave faster than someone apologizing after getting caught cheating. I could never stay firm when she looked at me like I was already part of her pack family, and maybe that is what made me endure with Niall for so long. I wasn't just trying to make it work with him. I was trying to honor her, to have the mother figure I'd always craved. But this time, both Akira and I had enough of submitting just to keep everyone else comfortable. Louisa, this isn't some temporary disagreement, I said. Niall never truly accepted me as his mate. Not then, and certainly not now. It has only gotten worse. I am done pretending I am okay with being second choice. There was a pause, then her voice returned, thinner, raspier. A mate bond isn't something to discard lightly, Christina. I've always seen you as my daughter, as part of our pack. I mean that. I'll talk to Niall. I will. I'll make sure he cuts ties with your sister. Please, darling. Just give him one more chance, even if it is just for me. And for a second, Akira and I faltered. Just a little. Then, I looked around me. My apartment was filled with half-packed boxes. My jewelry tools were stuffed into a cardboard wine case, and my coat still hung off the door, as undecided as I'd been about my future just days ago. I remembered exactly why I was moving. I remembered my father threatening I sold his family business just to force me into a political alliance, while treating Beatrice like she was the goddess's gift to werewolves. And suddenly, neither Akira nor I felt uncertain anymore. If I gave in now, I'd lose every shred of self-respect my wolf and I had managed to salvage. I mean, at this time, Louisa, I said slowly, this isn't an impulsive reaction. It is not a negotiation tactic. I am not bonding with Niall. I am sorry. There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end. But you and Niall seemed fine at the last moon gathering. What happened? Are you seriously calling off the mating ceremony? Her voice trembled. I've made my decision. I am not doing this out of spite, Louisa. It is not temporary. I am done. Niall formally rejected me, and I accepted. Christina, she cried, I cannot accept. Bang. A deafening crash burst through the phone speaker. I heard metal screaming against metal, the sound of everything going catastrophically wrong in a split second. Louisa, what happened? Louisa. My grip on the phone tightened until my knuckles went bone, white. Inside me, Akira snapped to attention, restless and pacing. A burst of chaos shouting, a metallic screeching, then static before the call abruptly cut out. My stomach plummeted. Akira let out a raw, internal howl. Louisa, my voice trembled. No reply, just dead air. I redealed, nothing, texting Niall, no response, even called Clive, Louisa's mate, only to reach his voicemail. This wasn't just silence, it was a void, deeply, terrifyingly wrong. Heart thundering. I grabbed my bag and phone and bolted. I smashed my phone against the door frame on the way out. Shit, I cursed loudly. Then I managed to drop my purse, scattering its contents across the floor. Damn it. I crouched down to gather everything up, hands trembling violently. The call had ended too suddenly, too violently. That crash, it didn't sound like poor reception or a dropped phone. Was Louisa hurt? Was she alone? Had anyone alerted the pack healer? My brain spiraled into panic. I tried to shove my lip gloss, keys, and everything else back into my bag. I failed miserably. I was so consumed by my internal crisis that I didn't notice the elevator ding or the approaching footsteps. Not until someone knelt before me and placed strong, steady hands on my trembling shoulders. What is wrong?